I never actually know what I'm going to work through every time I go in the studio. I go in with the intention of creating something, but then as I start to get into the flow and I get lost in the piece, something always comes up that maybe I haven't felt ready or courageous enough to face just in stillness. But there's something for me that when I paint, it's almost like the permission to release something.
Welcome to Soul-Led Creative Women, a podcast for creatively curious women seeking rich, soul-led ways to look after themselves better. I'm Sam Horton, and in this episode, I talk with Katherine Polack. Katherine is an artist and a therapeutic art coach. She has used her love for both the ocean and her art to heal from PTSD. And now she is passionate about both ocean conservation and supporting other women through art. So today I have Katherine Polack with me. Katherine is a Canadian-Peruvian mixed media artist and therapeutic art coach, nestled along a lake in Ontario, Canada. She creates peaceful and immersive ocean-inspired art that highlights the beauty, peace, and wonders of the ocean. She uses visual storytelling and calming colours to create a pause in time where you can find uninterrupted peace in your day. 5% of every sale goes toward ocean research, education and conservation through monthly donations that rotate between the Canadian Whale Institute, Canadian Sea Turtle Network and Oceania Canada. Katherine recently launched her therapeutic art business, Good Things Come in Seas, which combines three pillars, art, mindfulness and nature, which have been the most impactful in her own healing journey from PTSD to help women find relief from anxiety so that they can reconnect with themselves and feel at peace in their minds and bodies. So welcome, Katherine.
Well, thank you so much, Sam, for having me on here.
So first of all, Katherine, tell us a bit about your own creative journey and how creativity and art making have evolved for you and featured or not featured in your life since childhood.
Okay, so I guess I have always been creative. As a child, I used to wake up super early and draw cartoons just before school. And I sort of just got creative with everything that I could find around. Then at the age of 4, I moved from Canada to Peru. And then at the age of 9, came back to Canada. And then once I came back, I was creative, but only with, I found school projects. I wasn't really doing it on my own anymore. And I kind of disconnected with it until the age of 27. And that's just because I was looking at our apartment walls. They looked very bare and empty to me. And I thought, I don't want to just buy a painting. Let me try to paint. So my mom's also an artist. I borrowed some of her supplies and decided to paint 3 penguins. I still have them to this day. I'm not sure why I decided to paint that, but it was just calling to me. And then my second painting was sea turtles. And I think at that point, I just started to connect with that part of me that had lived by the ocean in Peru as a child. And in 2017, I went to Australia. And I think that is sort of what reignited my passion again for the ocean. So once I came back, that's when I fully immersed myself in painting anything about the ocean, whether it was underwater or just like a beach scene. But I think, yeah, it's always been in me. And the more I look at it now, it was waiting to come out at the right time when I needed it most.
Sure. And it seems like a big turning point for your art was your experience with PTSD. So do you feel comfortable telling us a bit about your experience with PTSD? Whatever you feel comfortable
Yeah,
with.
sure. Absolutely. So I was working as a paramedic during the pandemic, and I was doing the job for just under 2 years when I started to stopped recognizing myself, wasn't really feeling happy or fulfilled anymore, started to pull away and disconnect from friends and family. So I asked for help, something that to me at the time was very difficult to do. Found a therapist, started working through it. And after a few diagnoses, I realized I learned I had PTSD. So she gave me two options. She said, you can keep going back to work. However, it's going to be really difficult to heal. She said, or my recommendation is we take some time off and then we work on this. So I thought about it, decided to take some time off. And I had started my art business in 2018. And at this point, it was 2022. So the the first while that I was off, I was just sort of trying to even understand what PTSD was. Um, but the only thing I still felt like doing was painting. So I would just walk by my studio, pick up a brush one day, sometimes only for 5 minutes, sometimes for maybe half an hour. Um, but that is really what throughout the last couple of years have really helped me express and release my emotions. It provided this really like magical safe space where that I guess I didn't realize had existed with my art in terms of what you're actually working through as you're creating something.
Mm-hmm.
And then through therapy, meditation, all the research and all the help I've gotten in the last couple of years, I also started to discover that it wasn't just linked to the job of being a paramedic. So that was sort of the final, I guess, the straw that broke the camel's back. But there was a lot more that had been repressed in childhood. And when I look back, it all sort of makes sense. And the journey and how long it took me to reconnect back with art after leaving it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think I now call it a blessing in disguise. At first, so much was very painful, but I've seen everything that it has done for me. And now I'm excited with the things coming to these to help other women.
Sure. Like a big wake up call, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And art shows you the way in really subtle ways, but really magical ways. Yeah, it's
Oh
really
my gosh,
beautiful.
it really does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we sort of touched on it briefly, but what came first then, do you think? The ocean or the art?
So that's a tough one because like I was always creative as a child, as I mentioned, but from the age of 4 to 9, I lived just along the Pacific Ocean in Lima, Peru. So it's hard to say. Every summer we would spend our summers at the beach as a family. And my mom did put me in an art class. It was a still life class. I'll never forget that. I think I was 6 or 7 and I hated it. The class was, I was asked to paint a bowl of fruit and I didn't want to sit still. I didn't want to look at shadows and highlights, but it's funny how it was kind of always there. At that time, I needed it in my own way.
Sure.
So I think they kind of grew maybe simultaneously.
Okay, that's interesting. So have you ever actually painted anything other than ocean stuff, or has it always really been ocean inspired?
Well, I have, and I don't enjoy it as much. I have tried. I've purposely tried to push myself to do other things, and at the end of the day, there's just something about the ocean. I don't know if it's the calming blues, if it's just painting marine life and how free and at peace they look, but I think that's it. But it keeps calling me in, and I've tried other things. I've tried portraits, houses, and it doesn't fill me the same way.
Yeah, interesting. I know that you recently did a series that was still ocean inspired, but it had like people in it, like figures. So was it a
Yeah.
surface series or something? Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. So that one, I'm actually still finishing that one. I
Okay.
haven't released it yet on the last piece. That one's called Women of the Sea,
Okay.
surf for PTSD, because throughout this journey, I also learned surf therapy and how that is being used for many mental health challenges, including PTSD. But it sort of represents different versions of myself as well as all the women that have helped me along this journey.
Sure.
And I am enjoying painting it, but it's still different than marine life. And I think because it's so close to my story, I feel that it's actually been a challenge and it's been interesting to see where my resistance is
Mm.
because that story is personal. I can't hide behind the turtle or the whale anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Wow. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you want to paint figures in your oceans again after this
Right.
experience. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's all a big journey.
Yeah.
So what was it then, like, going just a bit deeper, I guess, into your art making process and your experience? What is it personally for you that feels most transformative and healing about making art?
Mm, Beautiful question. I would say is I never actually know my what I'm going to work through every time I go in the studio. I go in with the intention of creating something, but then as I start to get into the flow and I get lost in the piece, something always comes up that maybe I haven't felt ready or courageous enough to face just in stillness. But there's something for me that when I paint, it's almost like the permission to release something, and it's my kindest self. There's no inner critic when I'm painting, which is really interesting, and I can work through it with a really loving approach. And I'm sort of like, as I'm painting, I'm like, oh wow, I didn't realize that was still bothering me. And then I paint, and I'm like, okay, I understand where that came from, and then I release it.
Yeah. Yeah, very
So
powerful.
yeah, and
Very powerful.
yeah, obviously you understand what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the inner critic thing's interesting because I actually think that that's when we get stuck in sort of a masculine energy and we're really attached to the outcome of a painting. But it's actually a shift in perspective, when we're really in that feminine energy and we're really getting in tune with our inner world as we're painting through that distraction of the of the creative, the tangible physical action of making something with your hands. Yeah, it just really helps us to let the things come up, that need to come up rather than us forcing it or trying to find words or logic. Yeah, so I wholeheartedly agree with your sentiment there. It's quite
That's
magical, isn't
exactly
it?
it.
Mm.
It is.
Mhm. So I know that, like, the big focus for both your art works and your therapeutic art coaching, I know that they both have a common thread of the concept of blue mind. Can you tell us a bit more about what blue mind is and why it's important to you in your work?
Sure. So I first heard the term in 2018. I purchased a book called Blue Mind, and it's by Wallace J. Nichols. I was When I learned about it, I had not yet started my healing journey. Um, and I wasn't a paramedic yet. I just started my art business. I found it fascinating. So what it is it talks about the science and the art behind why we feel the most experience a meditative state when we're in water, near water, even on top of it, whether it's a boat or a surfboard, anything like that. And just the really soothing and healing effects that it can have on us, mentally, physiologically, emotionally. So I found it interesting, but at the time, I wasn't really connecting to it too much. And then as I began my healing journey, I remembered this book. I pulled it out again, gave it another read, and I started to realize how important just connecting with water and nature in general had been in and continues to be in my journey. I make sure to spend time near water or trees now every single day, even for a few minutes. And it's really just taught me to be more mindful and more aware of everything that's around us that can bring us peace. And unfortunately, Wallace J. Nichols passed away last month, just 2 days after World Ocean Day. And that was a huge shock for the entire community. He was meant to speak at a conference this fall that I was going to attend. Um, and we had been in communication about, I told him I would love to do an immersive sort of exhibition and for him to be a speaker. Um, so I guess after that occurred, and I sort of realized that, okay, I have a bigger mission here. I know a lot of people still don't know what Blue Mind is, or they just don't spend enough time in nature and they're feeling stressed, anxious. So with both Katherine Polack art and Good Things Come in Seeds, my goal is just to help people in general just connect back to themselves. And one of the ways you can do that is through art, through nature, and just through mindfulness.
Yeah, beautiful. It's very sad that he's passed away. I
Mm.
guess that just means that his legacy needs to continue on through people like you, Katherine. So yeah, wow. Nature is an amazing inspiration for the art, though, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing as well, right? So the two magically and really have a real synergy, when you're painting nature, it's sort of like a double effect. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah.
So with the ocean featuring so much in your work, I know you naturally and proudly support ocean conservation. So tell us a bit about your collaborations and your aspirations in that area for the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. So right now, at the end of every month I rotate between these three organizations, Oceana Canada, the Canadian Whale Institute, and Canadian Sea Turtle Network. I would love to expand to so many more around the world. And I'm working on reaching out to different organizations. But what this does is with any purchase that anyone makes, whether it's a postcard, a print, or a painting, 5% of every sale will go to the organization of that month. And this just allows them to continue with their research, put out more education, in some instances, actually help, for example, with Canadian Whale Institute, if there are any whales that are caught in fishing nets, the donations are what allow the organization to continue to save and rescue the marine life. And I have a lot of goals, but one of them would be I would love to do a charity one day where I donate some of my paintings to several organizations. I just like envision it somewhere along the coast, whether it's Australia or somewhere in the States, because I know Florida did a lot of sea turtle research and conservation. And yeah, it would just be an event where I would invite all sorts of keynote speakers and other artists and ocean advocates to really just help educate the public more on why this is important.
That's amazing. So is that like your big dream, is it? To be speaking
That's
on a world stage about the ocean, and that's amazing.
yeah. And yes, that is a big dream to create a center where I would love to have resident artists come in and we
Mm,
can feature their work.
mm,
Um, but all based on ocean
sure.
conservation. So yeah, if it does happen in Australia, you'll definitely be invited.
Yeah, so good. So good. That's an amazing ambition. I love that. Okay, so art aside, what does your personal self-care wellness routine look like then? What do you do for yourself, to make sure that you're being looked after?
Yeah, this one took me a long time to establish, but at the moment, so for a very long time, I was very focused on work, almost like a workaholic. And from the time I would wake up to the time I go to bed, always thinking about work. And as you know, when you run a business, it never stops. So I didn't like that I was waking up and then essentially heading over to the computer. And then while learning to reconnect back with myself, my body, my mind, and my soul, I started to meditate last year. And I think, like anyone's journey, you have a lot of questions. You don't know if you're doing it right until you understand it. It's just being curious and being aware of what comes up. So now, for about a year now, I have a routine where I wake up and the first thing I do is meditate. And then I journal anything that might come up, or I'll journal anything that I'm grateful for, anything that I feel just needs to come out before I can start the day. And then I have a book of different quotes and affirmations. So I'll just read one a day, really sit with it, see how I can implement that into what's going on in my life. And then from there, my husband and I go for a walk. There are ducks and geese close by that we just love to go see by the water every single morning. And I think just starting again with nature is a really peaceful way to begin the day. And then in terms of like, I never used to listen to how my body was speaking to me or uh, cues as to when I needed to stop. So I've definitely become a lot more aware of those signals and how they show up in me, because I know that they show up differently for every person. So I've really gotten used to learning what my limits are, not pushing myself to the point of being exhausted and just knowing just before to stop. And if some days I'm just not up for it, before I used to just push myself through it. And now I'll just say, you know what, I'm just taking today off. I'm going to read or spend time in nature or paint. But, and then I guess I forgot creating, but in my mind, I guess that's just part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're probably waiting for that. So yeah, creativity is embedded every single day. In the morning, I will have a little notebook and coloring pencil,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just draw or sketch or doodle something. And if it's a studio day, then that means it's a little bit more exciting and you get to paint for several hours if I'm feeling up for it. But some sort of creativity in my day has been very crucial and
Mm-hmm.
just exciting.
Wonderful. Sounds like you've got a real balance and a mixture of things that you use to support you. And the meditation and journaling is so powerful as well. So I really believe in that. It's really great to set yourself up for your day, but also creative work too. If you can do that before you start, then it's going to be easier to achieve creative flow and all the magic that we spoke about before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It really just does help ground you.
Mm. So, for all the women who want to actively heal from past traumas or emotional triggers, what questions would you have them ask themselves today? And what baby steps might they be able to take towards, on their healing journey?
I would say the biggest one would be just get curious. Anytime something comes up, whether you're in a particular situation or you're having an interaction with someone, if something doesn't feel good or if you notice your mood shifted, it's okay if you don't know why. Don't try and get caught figuring out the why, but just start getting curious, seeing, okay, how is this feeling in my body? So through my own practices, I've learned I used to try to logically figure out the reason. And my therapist told me it's so much easier to connect with the sensation first. Yes, and I think you are agreeing with that because sometimes we don't know. But if you can figure out maybe where it lives in your body, um, if your throat is closing up, if your stomach hurts, if you just if you just don't feel comfortable in the situation, um, that's okay. And just get curious with it, investigate. If you can trace back maybe when it started and see if there are patterns. Does it keep coming up throughout the day, throughout the week? Maybe anytime a similar situation happened. And journaling has been so huge for me. I know a lot of people talk about it, but it really does allow you to get out anything that you're feeling. It's yours. No one's going to look at it. It's just for you to get out your emotions. And I'd love to ask myself why, almost to keep digging deeper. So if I say, I'm feeling a certain way, okay, why? What am I making the situation or interaction mean about me? Because we usually do that. We internalize things. Um, and then usually when I get to the root of it at the very bottom, it's usually some sort of, I was just looking for more peace or a boundary was crossed maybe that either I wasn't aware of or I I didn't use the right tools or I wasn't assertive enough to set those healthy boundaries. And it's great to have boundaries. I used to think I felt like a punishment to the person until I realized, no, it's actually in place to have a healthy relationship with this person, but this is just how you honor yourself. So I know those were several tips, but yes, get curious, see
Yeah.
where it lives in your body. If it does,
Mm.
journal and just be patient and be really, really kind to yourself.
And I'll add to what you just said as well. And it's this thing that I know that you do. So it's all of that, but then it's also finding some joy, interacting with things that bring you joy, whether that's just simple as nature or art or whatever it is, because that's where you can kind of really release all of that tension and toxic energy that you're carrying around. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Joy is it's so necessary. And sometimes we think we need to experience something huge to experience joy. And then you look around and you realize joy is everywhere.
Mm.
It's just a change in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how can people get to know you a bit better, Katherine? Get a real feel for your paintings and the other coaching work that you do.
Oh, absolutely. So my painting website and business is my first and last name. So the website is www.katherinepolack.com. My Instagram is at Katherine Polack. And then for therapeutic art coaching, it's for women right now looking to overcome any stress that they might be feeling, find relief from anxiety, work through traumas. And that's good things come in C's. And on Instagram, it's at good things come in period C's. And the reason for that is my whole life, I always had beautiful things come up in patterns of three. And then when I decided to start this, I felt my healing journey had been art, nature, mindfulness. That's three things. And I just thought it was almost like a clever play on words for good things coming. Three, but two.
In honor of your ocean, your love for the ocean,
Yeah,
your work.
exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today, Katherine. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sam. This is beautiful. Thank you for allowing me to share my story and just connect with you.
Start reconnecting with your inner creative magic with a powerful 10-minute meditation. This meditation is designed to help you reconnect to yourself, your creativity, and spark your inner wisdom by guiding you to discover your own unique and personal sacred creative space as you tune into your intuition. Please head to samhorton.co/gift